Hey guys, it's Pineapple here, and today we'll be discussing the leader of the Paranormal Liberation Front, Shigaraki Tomura. Shigaraki has definitely found himself in an interesting situation, and this video of course features spoilers for the My Hero Academia manga, so if you aren't caught up, please click on one of my videos covering this season's content instead. We'll be doing some theorizing, and this is actually part 1 of a 5-part theory video series that I've been working on all about what's going to be going on in these 4 months, but we'll get back to that in a bit. I want to remind you guys you can follow me on Twitter at VocalPineapple, and you can hit that bell icon and click that drop down menu to get notified whenever I upload. With all that said, let's get to talking about Shigaraki and his possible destructive future after that intro. Hit it! So this theory I'm going to be talking about over a series of videos really all starts with this 4-month period that Shigaraki is going to be out of commission while he comes into whatever power Ujiko is going to be giving him. First off, as a short refresher, and because I'm going to be referencing it a lot in this video, let's quickly go over Shigaraki's quirk. Shigaraki's journey mirrors Deku's journey in many ways, and one of those ways is the level of his power. At the beginning of the series, when Deku could barely control any of his power, Shigaraki's quirk was seen as one that was just pretty dangerous, but you could survive him touching you for a moment, as we see when he literally grabs Aizawa during the USJ arc in season 1. Now, as Deku grows, so does Shigaraki, and we see by the anime's current overhaul arc that Shigaraki can put his hand on someone's chest and completely decay them, as he does to Shield during his meeting of overhaul at the beginning of the season. So Shigaraki's quirk goes from being able to decay body parts to being able to decay a whole human body. Well, in the My Villain Academia arc, Shigaraki frees himself of all of his burdens as he battles against Re Destro. This mainly happens because previous to this, Shigaraki spends 3 months straight fighting against Gigantomachia with almost no time to sleep before they started fighting again. This extreme training massively boosted Shigaraki's power, and if you need a scale, let's think about it this way. Gigantomachia might be the strongest villain we've seen in the series so far, besides All For One. He easily demolishes the entire League of Villains for months, but he also shows massive displays of power, speed, and size, and that's without even showing up the multiple quirks that he has hidden in his body. While Deku, Bakugo, and Shoto have been training with Endeavor, they've seen massive improvements over just a week's time. You can see then how much Shigaraki must have grown from 3 months straight of fighting with his life on the line against a giant monster with multiple quirks. He's extremely tired during his assault on Deka City, Japan, and while he's a villain, his actions here are sort of heroic in nature. Here was the League of Villains, like a team infiltrating a villain's land to rescue their friends against a boss that likes to manipulate and trample the feelings of others. We saw how Shigaraki was personally annoyed, and he ended up being affected by his friends' feelings in this arc, and really the My Villain Academia arc is like a shonen arc with the villains taking the place of shonen protagonists. I think the heroic nature of what Shigaraki was doing mixed with his sleepiness contributed to him seeing his past and remembering Hana, his sister, showing him pictures of Nana Shimura, the hero, and everything that happened with his past. This led to Shigaraki letting go of all of his mental restraints and finally using his quirk how he used it when he was a child and killed his whole family. Using his quirk as it was originally intended to be used, along with the boost in power that he got from fighting Gigantomachia for 3 months, allowed Shigaraki to slam his hands on the ground and nearly level an entire city. He leaves a massive crater as he slams his hands up and down on the floor like a kid playing in a puddle of water, just laughing and enjoying himself as he finally gets to do the one thing that he wants to do the most: destroy. This moment with Shigaraki laughing and finally freeing himself is so important, and I think the reason that Horikoshi decided to put it on the cover of volume 25 is because this moment is Shigaraki finally laughing and smiling and looking as happy as he can be while he's surrounded by destruction. He's destroying everything around him, but he couldn't be any happier. And it's cool that seeing this is ultimately what makes Re Destro's quirk power down, because he knew that he had to follow this man. Well, after all that happened, the doctor decided that Shigaraki had done enough for him to finally earn the power of the research that the doctor mentioned at the beginning of the arc. We know that Hori's symbolism for what Shigaraki is going to go through was like Shigaraki being inside of a cocoon and coming out with big moth wings as an entirely new being. This probably isn't literal, and it's just a part of Ujiko explaining to Shigaraki that he is going to be doing something to his body that'll put him through hellish pain for 4 months, but once he's through that pain, he'll be an entirely new being compared to who he was before. I still think it'll be Shigaraki, and I don't expect him to look all that different, maybe besides having having fully healed skin or having his original black hair, which I think would really be cool, but maybe it might just end up being a Nomufied version of Shigaraki with his character intact. We did see him in the most recent chapter 255, hooked up to all sorts of tubes and keeping his mental state intact as the surgery and everything was happening to him, and it has been a month so far, so who knows? Now, before getting to what I think the result of this 4-month process will be for Shigaraki, let's take a second to talk about the villain for My Hero Academia's second movie, and that is Nine. Nine has the ability to steal quirks, and we've seen from trailers that he's Ujiko's experiment. Now, in the manga near the end of the My Villain Academia arc, Ujiko told Shigaraki that he had something for Shigaraki to deliver before he could give him his new powers, and the movie takes place between that quote and Shigaraki getting onto the doctor's table. Nine has been foreshadowed in the manga as early as to Pro Heroes arc, but let's talk about that in a second. We know that Ujiko's Nomu program helped him develop ways of infusing people with multiple quirks while also creating weapons of mass destruction from living test subjects. My personal theory is that the ultimate goal of doing this is to give All For One a new body to transfer into somehow that'll handle breaking the rule of the quirk singularity, which I suppose I'll explain in another video. Pretty much I think that Ujiko is trying to create another body that can handle having all of the quirks that All For One does, but I guess back to the point. Some of Ujiko's experiments can turn out like mindless Nomu, but they can also turn out like Hood the High-End Nomu with a really twisted personality, or they could end up like Kurogiri, who's apparently somewhat like a Nomu according to the recent chapters of My Hero Academia. With this logic, this would imply that Nine is actually also a Nomu of sorts, but of course a far more perfected version than even all of the high-ends, because he's completely able to keep his mental state intact. Ujiko even refers to the high-ends as being one step short of his perfect masterpiece in the Pro Heroes arc, so it lines up. Nine is able to control multiple quirks, and check my videos to see my video on each of them if you don't mind the spoilers for the movie. If Nine was the masterpiece, then whatever is happening to Shigaraki might be Ujiko's magnum opus, because all of his research and testing has to lead to a perfected version of this process. I don't think Ujiko would use an imperfect version of his experimenting on Shigaraki, especially after Shigaraki proved himself to be the next ruler and met all of Ujiko and All For One standards. That means that assuming Nine's experimenting led to him having a weaker version of All For One, which we know that he does according to the movie, would that mean that in 4 months, Shigaraki could have the power to steal and have multiple quirks? Could Shigaraki get the real All For One? This is a terrifying thought, because if Shigaraki wakes up in 4 months with the ability to steal quirks, that makes him a massive threat in more ways than one. It's scary thinking that Shigaraki might be able to run up to someone and steal their quirk, but how does this set up Shigaraki to be an even eviler and more unredeemable villain than All For One, Overhaul, and every other villain thus far in the series? Well, think about it this way. All For One can steal a person's quirk, but even when he does, they're still alive. He can have them work for him to gain a new one maybe, and he can put them in his service, but I feel like with Shigaraki, he would steal someone's quirk and then instantly decay them. This means that unlike with All For One, there's no takebacks. If Shigaraki takes your quirk, you just die, because it means that you also get melted by his decay quirk. Even without considering how dangerous Shigaraki would be with All For One, let's talk about the title of this video, Shigaraki Awakens a Terrifying New Quirk. You see, we've seen All For One use multiple quirks together at the same time. Now, if Shigaraki had All For One, which is the ability to steal and grant quirks on physical contact, we've already explained how Shigaraki's quirk works now, which is that the decay spreads from one point to anything that's touching it. It's powerful enough that if you're touching the floor when he's decaying it, the decay can crawl up your leg like a disease and wither you away, which is why Reed Destro had to cut his legs off to save himself from the effect spreading. Well, if he fuses his quirk that can decay people who are touching a surface that he touches with the ability to steal quirks, could Shigaraki theoretically steal people's quirks through surfaces that he's touching? To take it even further, would he have to decay the person for this quirk stealing to take effect? What I'm saying is, what if Shigaraki could touch the ground, decay a person standing on the same ground, and steal their quirk without ever getting near them? We could be on the verge of seeing something extremely overpowered and broken here, and again, this sets up Shigaraki to be a far more dangerous character than All For One, while also putting him in line of his goals. Consider this. Shigaraki wants to destroy the Hero Society, and really, society as a whole. Shigaraki being able to steal someone's quirk and kill them instantly just by touching a surface that they're also touching would honestly make Shigaraki like a literal cancer on the Hero Society and the world itself. You can see what he did to Deka City, Japan. He turned a large portion of the city to dust, destroying and killing anything within a giant radius. But what if now Shigaraki can walk into a large city, do that again, and also get the benefit of gaining every quirk of the victims within his decay's radius. This would make Shigaraki potentially the most deadly and horrifying villain that's ever existed, because All For One wanted to rule the world. Overhaul wanted to rewind the world. Shigaraki's quirk, though, is all about destruction. All For One saw that Shigaraki's quirk gave him a natural urge to use it and destroy things, but he might not realize that he actually enabled a monster that could end up wanting to destroy the world. Shigaraki could eventually see himself growing his power enough that he could destroy whole islands, or even worse. So let's hope that he can be stopped. Now, regardless of what happens and whether or not Shigaraki truly gets All For One or an equivalent quirk, we know that he'll be coming out of this 4-month period ridiculously powerful and ready to destroy everything. The Paranormal Liberation Front is gathering all of their forces to destroy everything in 4 months, and as of the latest chapter of the manga, we have 3 months left. Hawks has managed to get his message out to the heroes, and they've started interning the young heroes from all across the country, with various sidekicks and agencies all getting stronger and spending these next 4 months preparing for something. Both sides are getting ready, so it seems like we're heading towards My Hero Academia's war arc, with the villains coming up against the heroes. We have no idea how the heroes are going to deal with everything the villains have on their side, let alone with Shigaraki, but it's all coming to a head with Shigaraki's awakening also lining up the start of the 2nd year at UA. It's also near Shigaraki's birthday, but we'll get into the numerology and everything surrounding that in a future video. In our next video, we'll be discussing what I think can happen in this upcoming war arc, and how I think we've actually seen some of this war already in the anime, as well as how Deku's time may finally be coming, as far as him having a moment to save the day in front of the public. This is Pineapple. Look out for part 2 of the My Hero Academia war arc theory, and I love you guys. Peace.